As a disabled counsellor, one of the most common things I hear from chronically ill people is this: I don't know who I am anymore. And today I want to talk about why illness and disability can create such a deep and profound grief around identity, ability, and self-worth. Welcome back to Unwinding Minds. I'm Rosie. Hi. I'm a UK-based counsellor specialising in supporting disabled, neurodiverse and chronically ill people with their mental health. Alongside private counselling services, I make these videos to support those who are struggling with their mental health. These videos are here to offer psychoeducation and some support, especially for those who can't access counselling right now, but it is important to state that they aren't a replacement for professional therapy. Today we're going to talk about something that I think many chronically ill people and disabled people experience but often struggle to be heard in: grieving the healthy version of yourself. And I want to say from the beginning that grief doesn't only happen when somebody dies. We can also grieve identities, futures, abilities, relationships, careers, routines, independence, and versions of ourselves that we thought we would always have access to. Chronic illness and disability can change your life in ways that are practical, emotional, social, financial, spiritual, physical, and deeply personal. And sometimes one of the hardest parts is not just managing symptoms, it's trying to understand who you are now. You may look at your life and think things like, I don't recognize myself anymore, or I miss who I used to be, or I thought my life would look different than this. I can't do things that made me feel like me. Or I feel trapped in my body in between who I was then and who I am now. I don't feel understood by the people who knew the old version of me. And if that resonates with you, I want you to know that grieving those losses is a very natural thing to go through. You're responding to change, and often those changes are things that you did not choose. And honestly, some of those changes can be too enormous to process in one go. Here's the thing about grief: we almost always apply that particular word when we're thinking about death. When people think about grief, they often imagine a single event with a very clear beginning and end, whether that be grieving their own upcoming death or the death of a loved one. But this is far from the only grief that human beings can feel. Chronic illness grief is often ongoing because the losses can keep happening. Your health can degrade over time, or you can experience flare-ups. You may lose abilities gradually. You may regain some things and then lose them again. You may constantly have to adjust your expectations, and you may mourn futures you planned for but can no longer reach in the same way, or at all. And one of the difficult things about this kind of grief is that it's often more or less invisible to other people because there isn't a funeral, there is no public acknowledgement of the change, and unfortunately a small subset of people may even expect you to feel grateful that your condition isn't worse. But the grief that you experience in private is very much still grief. You're allowed to mourn changes to your life even if other people don't fully understand them. Honestly, it would be surprising if you experienced no grief in the process of going through a long-term illness or lifelong disability, because your way of experiencing the world is either different or has changed. Let's talk first about identity shifts after illness or disability. A lot of us build our identities around what we can do. Maybe before your illness you were a highly productive person, or independent, or physically very active, or academically successful. Or you might have been social and extremely outgoing. You may have been reliable and constantly helping other people, or career focused, creative, all of these things, spontaneous. And then illness or disability arrives, and suddenly the things that once felt natural and easy become inconsistent, difficult to do, or even impossible. And that can create a really painful identity crisis, because if your sense of self was built around capability or achievement or caring for other people, losing access to those things can leave you wondering who the heck you even are now. You may feel disconnected from yourself. You may compare yourself constantly to the old version of you. You may keep trying to function as though your body hasn't changed, because accepting the reality feels really terrifying. And I think many people become stuck in this survival mode, partly because they're trying to outrun the grief. Because if you stop pushing for a moment, you may have to acknowledge how much has changed. And sitting with this can feel overwhelming and frightening, terrifying. There are obvious losses that people tend to recognize more easily, like no longer being able to work, exercise, travel, or socialize in the same way. But there are also smaller losses that can quietly break you down over time. So that would be things like needing help to shower or dress, no longer being able to stay out late, struggling to read, write, or concentrate, not recognizing your own energy levels anymore, losing access to hobbies that you loved, avoiding crowded places because of fatigue or because of pain, not being spontaneous anymore, not being able to be, needing recovery time after things that you previously would have found basic, feeling unreliable, cancelling your plans repeatedly as a result of your health. And sometimes what hurts the most is not even the activity itself, it's what the activity represented to you. Freedom, confidence, connection, independence. A lot of people who are disabled and chronically ill also grieve the loss of certainty. You may no longer trust your body in the same way. You may not know what kind of day you're going to have when you wake up. You may feel unable to plan for the future confidently. And that unpredictability can create anxiety, hypervigilance, and sadness too. And so on top of grieving the big changes, like not being able to work anymore, like I said, you might also be going through smaller changes all the time that can wear you down. Worse, it can be hard for some people to articulate that to other people, and that can create a sense of isolation, on top of feeling like your experiences are too different from them to be able to relate to. One thing I hear very frequently during sessions is, but other people have it worse. God, I hear this one all day long, and I think that part of the reason for that is to minimize their own grief, because somebody else is more ill, more disabled, or struggling more. Comparison is the thief of joy, guys, and suffering is not a competition or something that we need to compare notes on. Acknowledging your pain or fatigue does not take support away from somebody else. It takes nothing from another person to feel sad about your own circumstances. And honestly, minimizing your own emotions usually just makes them harder to process and work through. Ignoring a feeling doesn't make it go away. You are allowed to grieve your losses, even if somebody else's losses look different. Almost always, when I witness others playing the comparison game in this way, they are thinking about the fact that others have it worse, without accounting for the fact that the opposite is also true. You are going through struggles that are unique to you, and worse than some other people's. There is a pressure to stay positive as well that we have to talk about. Many chronically ill and disabled people feel pressure to be inspirational, resilient, or endlessly positive. I swear to God, if I hear one more person call me inspirational, I will throw my wheelchair out of the window. Most disabled people feel this way about being called inspirational for doing regular daily things, by the way, so please bear that in mind. And while hope can absolutely matter, forced positivity usually makes grief feel all the lonelier, because it sends the message that sadness, anger, resentment, fear, or exhaustion are somehow unacceptable or unnatural, or that it needs to be pathologized, studied, or fixed. But these emotions are incredibly normal responses to life-changing circumstances. Accepting your reality does not mean you are giving up. And acknowledging suffering does not mean there is no joy left in your life. Two things can be true at once. You can be grateful for the support you have and devastated by the loss you've experienced. You can love your body deeply for trying its best and resent your limitations. You can find meaning in your life and still mourn what illness has taken from you. Those things are not actually contradictions. They are part of being a human being. Moving towards self-acceptance is something we'll discuss now. Now, I want to be careful here because self-acceptance is often spoken about online as though it's a simple mindset shift. You do some yoga, drink some water, think sunshiny thoughts, and bam, you're chill with yourself all of a sudden. It's a vicious, cruel lie. For most people, it's not that simple at all, especially when your body is experiencing pain, when it's unpredictable or unsupported by society or constantly misunderstood. Self-acceptance is usually not a single moment where you suddenly feel all kumbaya and at peace with everything. It can be, but it's often a gradual process rebuilding your relationship with yourself. And sometimes it begins with reducing the war between you and your body. Not loving every symptom, not pretending that everything is okay, but slowly learning to stop punishing yourself for being ill. And that might involve speaking to yourself more gently. It might also involve seeking out appropriate support, like counselling or therapy, to process your feelings. It could involve allowing yourself to rest without guilt, or adapting your life instead of constantly forcing yourself to push through things. Finding disabled and chronically ill communities that you can join is also really supportive. And grieving honestly instead of suppressing it, pretending you're not feeling that way. Redefining your worth outside of productivity is helpful too, and creating meaning in smaller or different ways. And something I really want people to hear is this: your life does not have to look like your old life to still have value. You're still a whole person, even if your abilities might have changed. You might not feel like it, but I hope you can hear me when I say that your value as a person does not diminish or increase with capacity. You are allowed to become someone new. I think one of the hardest parts of chronic illness is that many people spend years trying to get back to themselves. And sometimes recovery in that way does happen, whether that be spontaneous recovery or through medication and other treatments and supports. Sometimes your symptoms will improve over time also, but sometimes life also just changes permanently. And when that happens, healing may involve not just trying to reclaim your old identity, but allowing yourself to build a new one too. That can feel frightening because it might feel like letting go of the past. But it also creates room for all sorts, for different priorities, for deeper relationships and greater self-understanding. It can give you more space for compassion for yourself and an improved understanding of how to take care of yourself and your needs. It can mean slower but more sustainable living, new interests and ways of connecting with others. You are not required to stay emotionally frozen in the life that you lost forever. And moving forward does not mean that your life before was not meaningful or that the grief you experienced was not real. One thing to say about grief is that it may be something that you dip in and out of. If you are grieving the healthy version of yourself right now, I really want you to know that you are not alone in that experience. It is an experience that is surprisingly common, even if it isn't as talked about as much as it deserves to be. So many disabled and chronically ill people carry this grief quietly because they might feel ashamed of it, or because they think they should have somehow adjusted better by now, especially years down the line. But grief is not linear, there's no set timeline for it, and adapting to illness or disability is not simply about learning practical coping strategies, it's also about rebuilding your relationship with yourself, your body, and your future. All of that takes time, and you deserve compassion whilst you go through it. If you've made it this far, then please know that I'm very grateful for you being here. If this episode resonated with you, please take a second to like, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. And I'd really love to hear from you in the comment section below. What is something you've grieved since becoming ill or disabled that you don't think people talk about enough? We make a lot of videos here around chronic illness, disability, neurodivergence, and mental health, and your feedback genuinely helps us to improve this channel and shape future videos. If you're interested in working with me on a one-to-one basis, you can check the description for information about my counselling services too. Thank you so much for watching, and take really good care.